Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Dear friends, on behalf of California Women's Society for Democracy in Iran, CWSDI, I would like to welcome you to our virtual conference on International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. My name is Shekufa Sharif, and it is my privilege to moderate our conference today. This event will highlight gender-based violence and particularly examine the women's struggle against misogynist and highly repressive regime in Iran. We are honored to have a strong bipartisan support to uniting to end violence against women in Iran. During our event, we will hear from members of US Congress, California State Legislature, human rights activists, and many distinguished personalities. At this point, I would like to invite Mrs. Patty Mokhtari, President of CWSDI, to join us and start our program. Patty?
I'm sorry, I guess I was muted. I start from the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of California Women's Society for Democracy in Iran, I welcome all of you to this virtual forum titled Unite to End Violence Against Women in Iran and to commemorate International Day of Human Rights. My name is Parvaneh Pari Mokhtari, and before we begin, I would like to express our appreciation and thank our wonderful panel of speakers who have joined us today and to support our organization's mission. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I would like to take a moment to tell you about our organization. CWSDI is a member of Organization of Iranian American Communities, engages in wide-ranging activities in California and nationwide to promote women's rights, human rights, and religious tolerance. We aim to garner support and draw attention to violations of women's rights in Iran and nationwide. CWSDI recognizes that women must remain a driving force behind many of the positive changes we need in California, in US, and in the country of our heritage, Iran. With unimaginable costs and sacrifices, women have led the Iranian people's struggle for freedom throughout the 4 decades of resistance against fundamentalist Islamic rule. This leadership and sacrifice were clearly on display during the 2018 and 2019 nationwide protests in Iran. We strongly believe that the rights of Iranian women can only be secured in a democratic and free Iran. In this regard, President-elect of NCRI, Madam Rajavi, has forged a path that represents the needs and rights of every woman in Iran. Therefore, her platform is highly respected and supported by our organization. When we come together as daughters, sisters, mothers, and partners in life, we stand for a greater cause than ourselves. We come together and say no to sexism, no to misogyny, and no to acceptance of cultural violence. This day offers all of us an opportunity to pause and think about how far we have come on the issues of gender equality and how far more we need to go. This is a day that is not just about women, it is about a drive for equality, empowerment, emancipation, and ultimately it's about humanity. We encourage all of you to join us in this journey and help us stop violence against women in the name of religion in Iran. Join us in a united front against Islamic fundamentalism and together stand against violations of human rights. I thank you again for your presence. And at this point, I invite Ms. Shukufah Sharif to moderate our program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patty. We really appreciate all your points. At this point, it is my great honor to introduce Mayor Lindsay P. Horvath. She was elected to West Hollywood City Council on March 3rd, 2015. She previously served as a council member for 2 years from 2009 to 2011. She became involved with women's rights issues at the age of 22. She established the Hollywood branch of the National Organization for Women. She is widely known for her leadership on women's issues and serves as a global coordinator for 1 Billion Rising, a global campaign of the V-Day movement to end violence against women and girls. It's our pleasure to have you here with us today. We're gonna, I think, see a short clip from a little video, and then we'll have you say a few words for us. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much for having me here today. It's an honor and a pleasure to join you. And I'm so incredibly grateful for the work of CWSDI and for all the amazing people who are here today and the stories that, that you will share and the information that you will share. I want to give a special thanks to my friend Mitra Samani, who extended this invitation. She is a personal shiro of mine. The stories that she has shared and the ways that she has fought for and stood for what she believes in, fought for the rights of women, and as a leader for human rights is just absolutely incredible. And to all my friends in CSDI and CWSDI, Babak, Nasser, Perry, Shakufe, so many of you who have been friends along my journey. I just thank you for the leadership and commitment you have to making sure that we have strong relationships and are working together to advance human rights, both here in the United States, around the world, and obviously, especially in Iran. Today on Human Rights Day, we remember the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. And it's an important milestone for us to think about how we work together across borders throughout the world, different people, different regions, different religions, different backgrounds, all coming together to advance the common cause of human rights. As was mentioned, my work first started in advancing women's rights and girls' rights. Before I became an elected official, I worked as an activist for a variety of organizations, including the National Organization for Women and the V-Day Global Movement to End Violence Against Women and Girls. And V-Day is well known across the world. The 1 Billion Rising campaign we were all a part of was on the ground in over 200 countries and has been working year after year diligently to empower women who are already on the ground, already leading movements to bring about justice and social change wherever they are. This work is incredibly important, especially as we think today and this year, we have a record number of women serving in Congress, and that's on both sides of the aisle. As we start to see how women lead in different places, we've seen in New Zealand and Taiwan a totally different response and an effective response to COVID-19. Just so happens both countries are led by women. In fact, women leaders around the world are responding to this global health pandemic in important ways. And I know that here on the front lines in the United States, we know that women make up so much of the workforce in the essential jobs, especially those frontline healthcare workers who are making sure to take care of each and every person struggling in the face of COVID-19. So I want to especially thank all of the women who are working to protect us and keep us safe, and to remind us that it is our responsibility to also keep them safe, to fight hard for protection for women's rights and for empowerment of women's rights. Of course, it makes sense that we would be here together with CWSDI because, of course, the work that you do is always advancing human rights wherever you invest your time. I came into contact with this organization through my leadership with the National Organization for Women. And it is through that partnership and finding shared values and shared interests that we came together, and we continue that relationship wherever we go because we share those values. I know that this organization also looks to the leadership of Mariam Rajavi, and her leadership around the world is recognized. It's so empowering to know that this movement and the work of this organization is inspired by the leadership of a woman. I think that really demonstrates a commitment to empowering women and making sure we know what women's rights actually look like and women's leadership looks like. It's not just talking a talk, it's truly walking a walk. And I think that's represented by my fellow panelists today. And I'm so honored to be joined by all of them and to join with them. We know that often a lot of these very big ideas can seem almost insurmountable, but when we start to take action at the local level, that's where we see that each one of us has the power to create change. And this action at the local level, the partnerships that I've been able to be a part of have really made a difference. And I want to thank CWSDI and CSDI for the work that you've done to transform my community of West Hollywood, to transform our region in California, and to advance shared goals and values all around the world. Today, I want to conclude by recommitting to standing with the Iranians who are on the ground, speaking out against the injustices they're experiencing by their government. We know that they are experiencing great adversity at great cost, simply for the right to say what is on their minds and in their hearts. It shouldn't be that way. And so we have to stand strong together as a global community to support them in their efforts to continue to advance what we know are human rights on the ground there. We need to support them in their fight for equality and their fight for change. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you. Please count on me to be a partner in your continued work. And thank you once again for having me today.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. You are absolutely right. Female leadership is so important, and we are looking so forward to the day that we will have female leadership in Iran, a free democratic Iran. Thank you so much. Our next speaker, I am delighted to introduce our next guest, Mrs. Roya Johnson. Roya is a human rights activist and a former political prisoner in Iran. Roya, thank you so much for joining us. We are looking forward to hearing your remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to join you today in this virtual conference. I would like to thank the organizers for all their great work on the issues of human rights and women's rights in Iran. On this day, 72 years ago, December 10th, 1948, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In the early 90s, an annual 2 weeks campaign was initiated to end violence against women. Each year, the campaign starts on November 25th and concludes on December 10th. From these historic milestones for the struggle of women's rights and human rights, one can say that women's rights are human rights, and one set of rights cannot be achieved without the other. Over the last 4 decades, the Iranian people, especially women, have fought against the oppressive government of Iran. Despite the brutal crackdown and attack by oppressive forces, the Iranian people come to the streets over and over again, demanding their democratic rights and freedom. Their slogans of death to the dictator, death to Velayat Faqih indicate fear of the Iranian regime has vanished. According to the Iran's constitution, the country is ruled based on the theory of government called the Velayat Faqih, which means an absolute power that is only for non-elected male clerics. This concept is at the core of the complex structure of the Iran's political system, in which immense religious and political authority rests with the Wali Faqih, or the supreme leader, currently Ali Khamenei, and misogyny is the heart of the Velayat Faqih system. That is why women in Iran became the primary victims of the mullahs' suppression, a suppression which has surpassed all conceivable threshold. Women carry the burden of legalized oppression in Iran, and they also face social oppression. In my homeland, the institutionalized violence against women is blessed in the name of religion. Any kind of political dissent challenging the ruling establishment in Iran is met with very harsh punishment. However, female political activists are a particular challenge to the regime. The regime's reaction to independent women, especially Muslim women, showcases the depth of the gender apartheid at the heart of the mullah's dictatorship. As a young student activist and a supporter of MEK, I spent my teenage years in the women's ward of one of Iran's notorious prisons, Adilabad, in the southern city of Shiraz. It was in prison where I saw firsthand how the mullahs shield their tyrannical rule behind wall of suppression. I was arrested at the age of 14. 15 revolutionary guards came to my house with machine guns in the middle of the night. My mom was arrested before me. I remember the deep fear in my father's eyes and how he couldn't take his eyes off me. Now, as a mother of 14 years old daughter, I can only imagine what was going through his head as they took me away. As a teenager, I walked into a prison cell not knowing what awaits me. I witnessed the most horrific torture. I also witnessed the resistance and defiance of the political prisoners and heroic acts for their cause of freedom and democracy. These are the memories that will stay with me forever. The murderous regime of mullahs must have thought that massacring 30,000 political prisoners in one summer can end Iranian political activists' call for freedom. They were wrong. They were absolutely wrong. The resistance movement in Iran continues to grow. The evidence can be seen in the student uprising of 1999, 2009, and the nation uprising in December 2017, January 2018, November 2019, and January 2020. As we talk about change in Iran, we need to be clear on what we believe change means. As someone who has seen the horrors of this regime, I can tell you, I see hope for a brighter future in Maryam Rajavi's 10-point plan. What makes the struggle of the Iranian people stronger is her unifying message and platform describing a secular republic based on gender equality and an end to all religious or ethnic discrimination. It is an inclusive message which continues to organize the public across the country with a vision of a free Iran. Iran's ongoing uprising carried that message. In 2018, she described the uprising as a nation that wants regime change. And in the street, we heard women, students, and labor, and union movements, shouting, "Down with the dictators, down with the mullahs." In 2019, she called women as the force of change and recognized the growing role of women in leading the rallies and protests across Iran. Mayim Rajavi represents an alternative to this regime based on the following 10 points. 1. The ballot box is the only criterion for legitimacy and the public based on universal suffrage. 2. Freedom of expression with unconditional access to the internet. 3. Abolition of death penalty. 4. Separation of religion and state. 5. Complete gender equality in political, social, and economic arenas. Committed to equal participation of women in political leadership, and any form of discrimination against women will be abolished. 6. Rule of law and justice. 7. Commitment to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and international covenant and conventions. 8. Recognize private property, private investment, and market economy. 9. Foreign policy based on peaceful coexistence, international and regional peace and cooperation. 10. Non-nuclear Iran. These points are a legitimate platform, and it is why her message resonates across Iran and inspires women to be on the forefront for change there. Thank you so much.
Roya, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. What happened to you at age 14 should have never happened to you, and we were working very hard to make sure this does not happen anymore in our homeland. And to our sisters in Iran, we have not forgotten you, and we will continue fighting for you. At this point, it is my great pleasure to introduce our first member of Congress, the Honorable Congresswoman Judy Chu, a member of the Democratic Party, serving as the representative for California's 27th Congressional District since 2013. A member of the House Ways and Means Subcommittee on Oversight, Congresswoman Judy Chu has been a great friend to our community and a strong voice for human rights and democracy in Iran. We are honored to have her join us today. We will watch a short clip and then we will hear from her.
Hello, I'm Congressmember Judy Chu, and I'm so happy to be joining the California Women's Society for Democracy in Iran for your virtual forum commemorating the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Every year, we use this day to call attention to the ongoing violence that women around the world continue to be subjected to. From violence at the hands of a partner to state-sponsored abuse like permitting female genital mutilation and child marriage, it's shocking how much oppression of women is still permitted today. Violence against women is keeping half the population from reaching their full potential. This is not only harmful to women and their families, it also holds back whole economies and countries. And conditions have only become more difficult for women during this coronavirus pandemic. As hospitals and health systems have been overwhelmed, other essential services like domestic violence shelters and hotlines have been stretched thin. That is why I'm proud to be an original co-sponsor of House Resolution 1147, which expresses the importance of taking a feminist approach to all aspects of foreign policy. If we are going to dismantle patriarchal structures that permit women to be treated as second-class citizens or worse, we must make it a priority in our foreign policy work, including our humanitarian aid, trade, diplomacy, and more. This resolution calls for a foreign policy that prioritizes peace and gender equality, protects the rights of all, and provides resources to tear down unequal power structures. This approach is particularly important in dealing with repressive regimes like the one in Iran, which uses misogyny as a tool to keep women from reaching their potential. Iran's mullahs continue to imprison women who dare to speak up for women's rights, and as we saw this summer, they still treat so-called honor killings as something less than the murder it is. But I am encouraged because I know that the mullahs do not reflect the incredible Iranian people. We saw that in an unforgettable way in 2018 when Iranian women began standing up in public and on street corners to remove their headscarves and speak up for their rights. That courageous activism helped lead into the widespread protests we saw across Iran last year. That is why the U.S. must always condemn the cold repression of the mullahs and support the peaceful and democratic aspirations within Iran. That is why I am grateful for the work that you are doing. The Iranian people deserve to be free from the harsh and violent rule of Iran's mullahs, and the world deserves to feel safe from Iranian support for terror and violence. Thank you for all your important work to promote human rights and a more free Iran.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman Judy Chu. Your support has so much to us. And right, the women in Iran have so much potential, and the mullahs cannot keep them down. Our next speaker is Dr. Solmaz Abu Ali, a world champion and 14-time U.S. national in traditional karate, a conflict resolution scholar, published author, and lecturer. We're so honored to have you here with us today.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Solmaz Abu Ali. I'm a 14-time U.S. national champion and world champion in traditional karate, as well as a professor, author, and human rights activist. Today, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the fragile situation in Iran and send a message directly to the women and young girls in the country. For years now, the regime has been hanging on its last leg of survival. People from various sectors of society have been taking to the streets, fed up with an inept and inhumane system and its enforcers. With COVID cases running rampant in the country, the regime's characteristics have become even more evident, particularly as it relates to Iranian females. There is no need for me to spell out the oppressive conditions under which women and young girls in Iran are living. Better than me, these females understand the poverty of thought that is pushing against their life, one in which women are treated as a second-class citizen with little to no access to education, healthcare, technology, justice, and basic human rights such as freedom of speech and expression. There is also no need for me to spell out the root cause of drastic actions taken by young women such as Sahar Khodayari, also known as Blue Girl. Sport, something so basic, is used as a tool to harass women. It's no wonder that women's sports teams in Iran receive no government support, no sponsors, and have to deal with bans on media coverage of their tournaments. So not only are they not allowed to watch sport games, their own participation in sports is banned from the public's view. In other areas of society, female nurses and teachers operate within a system which pays below the poverty line, if or when they actually do get paid. In prisons, women and girls, young girls, particularly those accused of having different political views than the regime's, are faced with shortage of water and detergents and disinfectants, shortage of PPEs like masks and gloves, lack of space for quarantine, lack of ventilation, and inadequate medical care, which have all expedited the spread of COVID. And yet, despite these pressures and injustices in every stratum of society, women have been leading ongoing protests against the crimes and violations of a regime rooted in the belief that to be a woman is a sin. The fact that women continue to be the force of change despite the dangers of harassment, imprisonment, and death tells me that they've chosen to fight back instead of staying silent. And they're right. Silence is not an option because it won't change the status quo. Iranian women have a history of fighting back against systemic violence. Mrs. Mariam Rajavi is one of these leading and progressive figures who has not only defied all the odds and broken glass ceilings, but has inspired an attitude and spirit of fighting for freedom, democracy, human rights, for a society where women are treated equally in economy, have equal participation in political leadership, have choice in how to dress, how to live, and how to be. I'm confident that this kind of a free Iran is the next chapter. To the young women and young girls inside Iran who risk their lives every day, keep fighting and keep believing, because you, more than anyone else, have the power to overthrow a regime that does not and never did belong anywhere on this planet. Keep your voice and spirit above the injustices, and know that we commit to supporting you and spreading your messages and stories worldwide so everyone knows the resilience and power of an Iranian woman. I pray for your safety and success and the opportunity to meet you in a free Iran. In the same token, I encourage members of the House and Senate, most especially female representatives and policymakers, to join hands with the Iranian women who are choosing action over silence. By working jointly, we send a clear signal that atrocities against women in Iran, and by extension, women worldwide, must stop. More importantly, our voice will hold accountable and make an example out of the Iranian government for its fundamentalist treatment of women. It will take active teamwork across geographical and cultural divides to create an equitable world for women everywhere. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you so much, Solmaz. Everything you said resonated so much, and you're right, the regime of Iran doesn't belong anywhere, especially in Iran. At this time, we're going to see a short video called Women in Front. Enjoy. We salute these brave women that fight so hard every day on the front line to have a better tomorrow for the future of Iran. We thank you so much. Our next speaker, I am delighted to introduce Mrs. Mina Intezari, former political prisoner in Iran and a human rights activist in exile. We will listen to her remarks shortly.
Hello, everyone. Let me thank you all members of the California Women's Society who worked so hard for this event. And I sincerely appreciate your attention to the situation of women's rights in Iran. First and foremost, I would like to honor all those women who dedicated and sacrificed their lives for freedom and equality. My name is Mina Intezari, a former political prisoner in Iran for 7 years and human rights activist in exile for more than 3 decades. My only so-called crime was participation in the peaceful demonstrations against the ruling mullahs and supporting peace and democracy and human rights in Iran, and also advocating People's Mujahideen Organization or MEK. From the first moments in prison, I witnessed the barbaric treatments of the defenseless prisoners and violations of their most basic rights by the prison guards. Women prison wards were crowded with 3 distinct generations: teenagers, young moms with their kids, and infants and elderly women. I still remember many nights when at time more than 100 prisoners were taken for execution. I can tell you as a witness, there has been no justice in entire mullah's judiciary system from the past till now. During those years, in addition to being physically and psychologically tortured, I witnessed the brutal torture and execution of many young teenage girls, 15, 16, 17 years old, university students, or even elderly women. Eventually, after 7 years of imprisonment, under special circumstances, I was released from the Evin prison in the spring of 1988, and shortly after, I left the country and came to the United States. Consequently, the mullah's security agents arrested my old father and kept him hostage for a few months, demanding my return. Back there in Iraq, a few weeks after my release and departure, the 1988 massacre of the political prisoners began by the Khomeini religious order. During the massacre of summer of 1988, around 30,000 of political prisoners and members of Iranian main opposition movement, MEK, were secretly hanged in prisons. Particularly, it was a genocide of the political prisoners, or in other words, Mullah's Holocaust. I lost all my beloved friends and cellmates in that genocide. This wasn't only a crime against Iranian freedom fighters, but also a crime against humanity. All these years in exile, as a survivor of the 1988 massacre, I have lived every day of my life remembering those dear fallen friends that I should have gone with them. But I think it was my destiny to be alive, to be here, to be their voice, the voice of innocence, the voice of Iranian women who bravely said no to religious fascism. Of course, this is an ongoing struggle in Iran to achieve freedom and justice for all people especially of the oppressed women.
I'll do my best. I'll do my best. Again, actually,
I should emphasize that if the world had held the Islamic regime accountable for all its crime against humanity, and specifically the mass executions of summer of 1988, they wouldn't dare to kill more than 1,500 innocent people during last year's uprising. Hereby, I gratefully honor all brave women who participated in the most recent uprising in November 2019, in which hundreds of them lost their lives by Mullah's regime, and thousands more who were arrested and still are in Mullah's prison. Finally, I would like to resound this message from Mrs. Mariam Rajabi and all those brave women that we can and we must stand up and fight for our rights, for freedom, democracy, and equality. Thank you all for the time given.
Thank you so much, Mina. I'm so sorry for everything that you had to endure in prison, but you are indeed a voice for the voiceless, and your sisters are counting on you and Iran, and we appreciate everything that you're doing for them. Our next speaker is Professor Hassana Adu, served as an ambassador of the Republic of Niger to the US and Canada from 2015 to 2019. Before her appointment as ambassador,
Thank you, my sister, for introducing me. And thank you for California Women Society for Democracy in Iran. I would like to particularly thank Mitra Homi for inviting me to join you. In 2001, Mitra invited me to meet President Mariam Rajavi in France at the convention. It was a life-changing experience. Today we are celebrating the Day Against Violence Against Women, not only in Iran, in Niger, but all over the world. I would like to share with you a couple of issues that we are dealing with in Niger and how we are handling it. I believe the struggle that women in Iran are facing is very important that the whole world knows about it. And in solidarity, we look at how we can join forces against it. So for 2020, we're going to discuss ending violence against women in Niger and the Sahel, where I come from. Next. When you look at the type of violence that women are going through, not only in Niger, but in the Sahel, we look at psychological violence, verbal abuse, silence. More than 50% of women interviewed in 2015 by UNFPA in Niger said they're subjected to psychological violence within their own home. This has not changed today. We have economic violence. Niger is considered one of the poorest countries in the world, but women are the faces of this poverty. 3% of women, 30%, of women interviewed in 2015 said that they do not have access to financial resources. It's not 3%. Cultural violence. You have early marriage, female genital mutilation, and polygamy. In Niger, because of Islam and traditional religion, the majority of women cannot decide when to get married. And we have many, many girls under age 15 who are married. They're forced to marry someone who has already 2 or 3 wives. You have sexual violence, forced sexual act, touching, sexual harassment. Women are subjected to this violence, but because of tradition, they cannot share with the neighbors, they cannot even share with their parents because they are considered to provoke this harassment. Physical violence. It is reported that more men are exposed to physical violence, but in fact, recent study shows that women are more subjected to physical violence than men. Next. When we look at from January to today, the pandemic all over Africa has really triggered more violence due to confinement, social distancing, and due to the confinement. When you look at government have advocated social distancing, but first of all, the majority of people do not believe that COVID-19 is happening. But the confinement, which lasted over 3 weeks, for example, in Niger, has shown that women experience so many violence during that period. Next. Go back, please. Next. So we look at really the Sahel region, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Mauritania, Niger, Senegal, Chad. What is happening in these countries? In Burkina Faso, when you look at before COVID, 10% of women experience violence. But today, they say 15.51% of women are experiencing violence due to confinement. In my own country, Niger, the fourth one, 52% women samples was taken. In 2019, at the end of 2019, 5.77% of women said they experienced violence. But today, 13.46. So we see a very huge increase in terms of violence due to COVID. The confinement and also the lack of resources are forcing people to live in conditions that are really conducive to violence within the household. Next. So when we look at what are the other factors which are triggering really violence against women in Niger and in the Sahel, we have poverty and lack of jobs, lack of education that lead to sometimes youth violence and drug, school-based violence, student to student, and teacher to student, teachers raping girls. But one of the major issues that we are facing over the last 15 years is Boko Haram. Boko Haram is an organization which says that Western education is not good for Muslim women. When you take Nigeria alone, more than 500 girls have been kidnapped and taken by Boko Haram. Taken to the forest, and up to today, people don't know what is happening to them. When you look at what is also affecting women in Niger and in the Sahel, war. We have refugees, we have displacement. When you take in Niger only, we have more than 600,000 refugees coming from neighboring countries which are experiencing war, Nigeria, Libya, and Mali. So again, within those situations, it's always the girl and women who are exposed to violence. Next. In November, the European Union and the UN consider Niger as a very hot spot for violence against women. So Niger was considered one of the 8 African countries that benefited from the Spotlight initiative, which is just launched by the European Union and the United Nations. So the aim of the program is to promote and protect the rights of women and girls in a multi-sectoral approach, including education, justice, health, thereby contributing to the implementation of the State of Sustainable Development Goals. Next, what are we focusing on in Niger? We have 4 regions, Maradi, Tawa, Tilaberi, and Zender, which are also bordering really places where women and children are experiencing displacement due to different crises in this area. So the key result that is expected by the fund provided by the European Union is to strengthen the legal framework. Colleagues who have just spoken raised the issue of policy. Are policy working? Do we even have good policies? So with this fund, we hope to strengthen the legal framework. But also, what are the social norms? Islam is a peaceful religion. Islam is a religion which has promoted women throughout history. But again, the fact that women don't read for themselves, they're not able to read the Quran. The Quran is interpreted by men. And therefore you see male interpretation of really the Quran that is negative for women. So you have also cultural practices such as female genital mutilation. So what are these social norms or cultural norms which impact women? And really we need to look at them and create conditions to prevent them. One of the issues that not only in Africa, in Niger, but around the world, which really impact change, is the lack of effective data to account for what is happening on women, violence against women. And so with this fund, the Spotlight Initiative, we are going to use the government and civil society organizations are going to generate data so that violence against women can be monitored. So the fund also helps to strengthen women's movement and civil society organization. When we look at the film that you presented, really, it is the civil society organization, it's a women organization at the grassroots, which are enacting change. And so being able to really strengthen their capacity to really identify and fight gender-based violence and harmful practices against women is very strategic in terms of promoting societal change. Let's move. So in Iran, Niger, and all over the world, no more violence against women, we say. No human being shall be violated because of gender and sexual orientation, race, culture and religion, social economic status, disability. They say, let's go together and end violence against women all over the world. Let's implement effectively CEDAW. There are many countries which are ratified CEDAW, but it's not implemented. I think we have to monitor that. Next. So I say again, I come in sisterhood and join you and say, let's promote peace and gender equality. To Iran's sister, I thank you for inviting me in this conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Hassana. You're so right, and thank you for sharing all this data with us. Indeed, it's true. Wherever fundamentalism spreads its tentacles, it seems to be nothing but destruction and violence for its people. And together we will work to bring peace for all of our sisters around the world. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Honorable Assembly Member Adrien Nazarian, elected in November 2020 to represent California's 46th Assembly District. It is our great pleasure to have you join us today. We're going to watch a short clip and listen to his remarks. Thank you so much.
Hi there. I'm Assemblymember Adrien Nazarian, and I'm proud to take part in today's event commemorating International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and galvanizing action to end violence against women and girls around the world. This mission is so important because addressing systemic injustice against women will drive global action towards justice and equality, not only here in the United States, but also in Iran, where misogyny fuels violence and gruesome oppression, as well as the rest of the world. I, as a grandson of the Armenian genocide survivors perpetrated by the Ottoman Turks, as well as an 8-year-old boy who had to flee his birth country of Iran with his family and moved to the United States at the age of 8, understand all too well what bullying does. And so since I've taken office, in the last 8 years, I've held over 90 events of self-defense workshops for women and girls, specifically to empower women and address the issue of bullying. We gotta act locally in order to be able to affect globally. Thank you all for doing what you do, and look forward to partnering up with you shoulder to shoulder and continuing addressing this issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. Our next guest is Honorable Congressman Jimmy Panetta, serving as the U.S. Representative for California's 20th Congressional District since 2016, a member of the Democratic Party. Congressman Panetta, our community appreciates your support, and it is an honor to have you with us today.
I'm United States Representative Jimmy Panetta. I proudly represent the Central Coast of California in our 20th Congressional District. It's an absolute honor to join the California Women's Society for Democracy in Iran, and thank you to the Iranian American community of Northern California for having me. I appreciate your incredible leadership in empowering women and girls all around the globe, and your help to end the systemic misogyny and violence that so many women and girls face. As we commemorate International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, let's recommit ourselves to ending violence against women and girls everywhere. We have to address systemic violence and injustices against women, not just here on the Central Coast in the United States, but of course in countries like Iran, where violence is rooted in misogyny and continues to oppress women and girls. For decades, the women leading the Iranian people's fight for freedom and democracy continue to do so, but at a significant cost and sacrifice. Their leadership burned bright during the 2018 and 2019 protests all across Iran, but unfortunately, they were met with continued violence from this regime. Now, we know oppressive regimes like Iran around the world continue to use violence against women to remain in control, suffocate female empowerment, and stifle dissent against the current system of governance. It is unconscionable that the torture and execution of pro-democracy women's rights activists continue to occur even today. It's up to the United States, it's up to the global community to make it clear that that type of systemic violence against women should not, must not, and cannot stand. We have a long way to go to ensure that all women are protected from bigotry and sexism and have the freedom to succeed and speak out. But let me tell you, I am so proud of the women and girls of this world that they have partners in CWSDI and IAC NorCal to continue the fight for equality everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Panetta. Your words are very powerful. We appreciate all your support. Our next guest is the Honorable Senator Pat Bates, is a member of the Republican Party currently serving in the California State Senate, representing the 36th Senate District. She served as the Senate's minority leader from 2017 to 2019. Senator Bates, thank you so much for your support. I'm looking forward to hearing your remarks.
Hi, I'm Senator Pat Bates, and I'm proud to represent South Orange, and North San Diego counties in the California State Senate. I send my warm regards to the Iranian Americans who seek a truly free and democratic Iran. I stand with you in commemorating the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. We all want to see an end to violence against women and girls, and I unequivocally support the Iranian people in their quest for democracy. A democratic and peaceful Iran would help protect the rights of women and girls. I commend California's Iranian Americans for not only advocating for democratic change in their ancestral homeland, but also for making the Golden State a more vibrant place for all. Thank you so much for your efforts to promote freedom, and I wish you to be safe and healthy.
Thank you so much, Senator Bates. Our next speaker is the Honorable Congressman Scott Peters, serving as the U.S. Representative for California's 52nd Congressional District since 2013. A member of the Democratic Party, Congressman Scott Peters has been supporting our cause for many years. It's an honor to have you join us today.
Hi, this is Congressman Scott Peters, and I'm honored to represent San Diego, Coronado, and Poway in the United States House of Representatives. In 1993, the United Nations passed the Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, but 27 years later, there's still work to be done. According to the UN, 1 in 3 women experiences physical or sexual violence in her lifetime. 71% of all human trafficking victims around the entire world are women and girls, and only 52% of married women or women in legal unions are allowed to freely make decisions about their health care and their bodies. Women who live in countries led by dictatorial regimes like the one currently ruling Iran are frequently in danger of abuse and torture, tactics often used to deter them from speaking out for democracy and equal rights. For this year's International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, we must all recognize the amount of work still needed to create a free and safe world. During my time in Congress, I've worked to ensure women have access to affordable reproductive health care, no matter where they live, and to give women the tools they need to challenge unfair pay. Now we need to expand educational and economic opportunities for girls and young women, not only in the United States, but around the world. And I will continue to support policies that create an atmosphere in which women can succeed no matter where they're from. By doing so, we can honor the legacy and hard work of so many women that came before us. I hope you'll join me in recognizing the importance of International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and committing to do more for a better future. Thank you and be well.
Thank you so much, Congressman Scott Peters. Thank you for everything you do for women here at home and also for all your support for women in Iran. Our next speaker is Kendra Miller-Rutanda. She is a lawyer and professor of military and international law at Chapman University in California. Professor Rutanda is a published author and a lecturer. We are honored to have you here with us today.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for inviting me to join you on this International Day to End Violence Against Women and Girls. Unfortunately, in far too many places in the world today, being born a little girl leads one to a life of little or no education, little or no opportunity, and little or no choice in crucial aspects of daily life. Choice in career, even choice in who you'll marry, when you'll marry, if you'll have children or how many children you have. In many parts of the world, women are not even allowed to spend money to purchase things they desperately need for them and their children. And these issues have only gotten worse in the shadow of COVID-19, where there's economic hardship and where people are going indoors. Evil grows in darkness, and we're seeing this a lot around the world, where there are no teachers, friends, family members, or relatives to know or understand what's really going on behind closed doors. Today, in addition to acknowledging and observing all the oppression that exists against women around the world, we also acknowledge those brave men and women who are standing up for individual rights, liberties, and freedoms in some of the most oppressive areas in the world. Over the last 2 years, Iran has particularly clamped down on those seeking freedom, on those seeking individual rights and liberties. People have been jailed with little or no due process and face extremely harsh penalty after sham trials without lawyers. Some have even been jailed for crimes supposedly committed when they were children, sometimes decades ago. Today we acknowledge and support all of those who suffer in silence. Today we especially acknowledge and support those heroes who take their own lives at risk, who put their own lives at risk to achieve a better, brighter tomorrow. Thank you so much for having me. I so support the work that you are doing, and I applaud you and encourage you to keep going, to continue on, and to continue on our quest to achieve equality, liberty, and freedom for all of those around the world. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Professor Rotunda. Thank you for everything you do and all your support. Our next guest is the Honorable Assembly Member Stephen Choi, serves as a member of the California State Assembly representing the 68th Assembly District since 2016. A Republican from Orange County, California, he has previously served 2 terms as mayor of Irvine, California. We're delighted to have you with us today.
Hello, I'm Stephen Choi, California Assembly Member from the 68th District in Orange County. I just want to congratulate your today's event, International Day, hosted by California Women's Society for Democracy in Iran. Your cause is important, that is to eliminate violence against women and girls around the world. I wish you a successful event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member Choi. Thank you for your participation. Our next speaker is Honorable Council Member John Lee. He was elected to Los Angeles City Council in 2019, serving the 12th Council District and the City Hall. Thank you for joining us.
Hello everyone, my name is John Lee and I'm council member of the 12th District here in the city of Los Angeles. Whether at the city level or the federal level or even as members of our community, we all need to work really hard to make sure that we bring attention to all the violence that still happens today against women throughout this world. I think I, along with you, am still shocked that here in the 21st century, we are still amazed when we hear stories of what's sort of allowed or accepted in different countries when these acts that happen, these reprehensible acts. And I want to thank you for everything that you are doing to make sure that we bring awareness and attention to this topic. Even with all that's going around us in this world, in this virtual world that we live in right now, you are making sure that we don't lose focus, that we don't lose sight, that we remember that we still need to fight. We need to fight every single day, and we need to strive towards making sure that everyone is aware and that how we can come together to fight this injustice that's happening to women worldwide.
Thank you so much, Council Member John Lee. I believe we have a short video next, if I'm not mistaken. I think we're going to see a short video.
زخمی تو صدامه، ابری تو چشامه، باری کوه آواری از ستم آری روشونه هامه، حراج عشق و انسان، بازار نوبرده داران، گریزون دختر ایرون، گم شده رویاهاش تو خیابون، اما من ناگهانم بغض آتش فشانم، موج خشم هزاره تو قلبم بیقراره، من نیمی از جهانم فریاد میتوانم، زیر آوار زنجیر من عصیان زمانم، من دختر ایرانم. نگاه کن ما به چه اوجی رسیدیم، چه طرحی واسه فردا کشیدیم، نه ترس از باد و بارون، نه ترس از این زمستون، خطر کن ما بهارو برگزیدیم، آری من ناگهانم بغض آتش فشانم، موج خشم هزاره تو قلبم بیقراره، من نیمی از جهانم فریاد میتوانم، زیر آوار زنجیر من عصیان زمانم، آری من ناگهانم آتش فشانم، موج خشم هزاره تو قلبم بیقراره، نیمی از جهانم فریاد میتوانم، زنجیر من عصیان زمانم، من دختر ایرانم.
What a beautiful song. We salute our young Iranian artists who use their talent for freedom and democracy in Iran. We really appreciate you. Our next speaker is Honorable Assembly Member Cristina Garcia. She is a Democrat representing the 58th Assembly District since 2012. Pleasure to have you here with us today.
Hi everyone, I am Cristina Garcia, State Assembly Member for the 58th Assembly District and also the Chair of the Legislative Women's Caucus. I'm honored to be here with you today. I want to thank the California Women's Society for Democracy in Iran and all our guests for putting on this event today and for uniting to eliminate violence against women. Women around the globe are being targeted with violence, with death, simply for using their voice and standing up for their rights. This must end. We want to make sure that all of our sisters out there, all of our mothers out there, every single woman out there is able to live a safe and happy life no matter what, no matter where they are at. I also want to call on the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran to stop torturing our women out there for simply using their voice and speaking up for themselves. We need them to understand that women's rights are human rights out there. And so the work you do today and every day is so important. We must continue to unite and speak up and support our sisters who can't use their voice in the same way we can out there. That's why today is so important. And I'm just so appreciative that you have all come here together to stand up for our sisters in the other side of the world. And the only way we can achieve a better world is if we work together and we make sure that women's rights are human rights, not just today, but every day moving forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member Garcia. Thank you for your kind words. Our next speaker, I believe she has sent us a message, Honorable Congresswoman Nanette Berrigan, serving as the U.S. Representative for California's 44th Congressional District since 2017. A member of the Democratic Party, Congresswoman Berrigan, we truly appreciate everything you have done for us. Dear friends, I am pleased to join you in recognizing the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. I commend the California Women's Society for Democracy in Iran, CWSDI, for hosting the forum and welcome all the leaders from my state and across the country who are participating in this important event to highlight the protection of women's rights in Iran. Countless women have fought and sacrificed for rights that we in the United States take for granted every day. Many Iranian women have fought for equal justice and fair society in their home country as well as in ours. I am glad to be a co-sponsor of legislation in the U.S. House that condemns Iranian state-sponsored terrorism and express support for the Iranian people's desire for a democratic, secular, and non-nuclear Republic of Iran. I will continue to work on protecting women's rights in our country and across the globe. Thank you again to CWSDI for hosting this very timely and important discussion. I wish you all a safe, prosperous, and happy New Year. Sincerely, Nanette Diaz Berrigan, Congresswoman, California's 44th Congressional District. Thank you so much, Congresswoman. On behalf of CWSDI, I would like to thank all of the speakers and everyone who participated for their heartfelt and insightful contributions. We heard and watched so many stories that reminds us of hope and bravery, which motivates us to continue towards our goal. Our resolution for 2020, International Elimination of Violence Against Women, as follows. The brave revolt of Iranian women against the regime is beyond just fighting against the compulsory veiling. It is for democracy and freedom. Today, women are indeed a pivotal force for change in Iran. We will work hard and are determined to end violations against women and girls. The regime's days are numbered. Democratic change in Iran is unavoidable and is on the horizon. Uprising in Iran is another manifestation of more than 4 decades long resistance against misogynist tyranny. The relentless and visionary leadership of Mrs. Rajavi and the resistance is vital to freedom for Iran and for Iranian women who pay heavy price daily for human rights and justice. We urge international and human rights organizations to hold regime of Iran accountable for violations of human rights and women's rights. Inactions and silence gives the regime in Iran open hand to continue its atrocities, and we have to put a stop on that. I will end my remarks by announcing our next event, which will be to celebrate International Women's Day in March of 2021, and invite all of you to join us. Please check CWSDI website, cwsdi.org, for further information. I thank you all for joining us today, participating, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of